Hello all. Oh my god, I am having a bad tech day today with OBS. I mean, it's not OBS strictly, but what is it? YouTube apparently updated something with their API or whatever where you're not just able to straight up copy paste like a browser link in your OBS and like customize its CSS or whatever. So I had to find this workaround or whatever on Twitter that apparently Kroneko, I think, put together called Sigma Nuts. It sounds ridiculous just saying, but I was able to find a way to get my chat up and running once again, and hopefully nothing else breaks today. I I straight up downloaded something that accidentally broke like the properties fund. Well, it just straight up broke like browser sources in general in OBS, and I had to like reinstall OBS to fix it. It was a whole odyssey, but hello everybody, welcome again to my music talk streams. I am Merrier, everybody's favorite music-loving cat boy in the VTuber sphere. Um, I am so excited today to have yet another guest. I've been befriending a sort of kind of a friend circle if you think about it. I mean, I sort of I met Brime VT and then Teji, and from there I've sort of branched out there from my next few guests. And today's guest in particular, Brime recommended her to me, and I'm really interested in getting to know her because she apparently has, quite extensive tastes in theater and J-pop. Would you all please welcome Melodi?
Hey, I am Melody Bear. I am a teddy bear VTuber. I really love music and indie games.
Welcome. Glad to have you, Melody. Usually when I start these streams, I like to sort of open the floor to y'all, let y'all sort of get comfortable and sort of talk about, I guess, where you kind of started out. Like, how did you get into music back in the day? Because, it's one thing, of course, to like music just sort of casually, listening to it on the side, but to really to get into it, like, sing, do other musical activities, that's a whole other commitment. So where did you find, I guess, that energy?
Well, I come from a somewhat musical family, and
Oh,
when I was
nice.
fairly young, my mom really encouraged me to get into music, specifically choir and theater.
Hmm. Okay. That's cool. Uh, what was to say? So that's something you've been doing a while. Have you been taking like formal lessons too?
Uh, I've never really taken formal lessons. You get a lot of exposure to like what good technique looks like just through participating in that sort of thing,
That's
but
fair.
I can't really say I've ever been formally trained.
Yeah, no, I remember I I was in choirs for quite a few years before I ever took like any vocal lessons, but that was only really temporarily. Like I took I think 2 semesters worth of vocal lessons in college before I was like, nah, I want to focus more on the drums. I mean, I've been drumming like almost 14 years at this point. I've been singing a lot longer. I was it my school growing up, it was like sort of one of those small schools like that had recently started up, and they were trying to conscript kids into like their music programs. And I think early on I was conscripted into both the choir and the orchestra. um I I never practiced the violin, so I didn't stick with that. But I was a choir kid for a big chunk of my life growing up. I quite relate to that. uh what else? Um, you say you also you love theater. What are some of your favorite musicals? I guess we'll open the floor to that.
It is a long list. I think, in terms of just music alone, I love everything by Andrew Lloyd Webber,
Oh, nice.
and I would say, uh, in terms of classics, I'd say probably Phantom of the Opera or Cats.
Yeah. No, I dig that. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't listened to that many musicals in recent times. You know, what was it? Back in the day, I remember being impressed by like stuff like Andrew Lloyd Webber and Stephen Sondheim, you know, like West Side Story, obviously. That is a hell of a fucking musical. What else? I don't know, you know, I guess being more educated in like the music history side of things, I was more exposed to, I guess, opera and stuff in college. Like I don't know how much you know about opera or what have you, but like taking music history, it came up a lot in just like exploring the ins and outs of of history. You know, so sorry to keep on you know, stop me if I'm babbling or rambling too much here, but like it's fascinating to see like, I mean, not to compare high art or low art with theater at all, but I just love the sort of the grandeur of opera a lot more. If
Really
you,
get that.
yeah, yeah. How to say? I don't know. It's weird, you know. I live in New York City, so I have, theoretically speaking, easy access to Broadway theater, but I've never personally myself gone to a Broadway musical. It's expensive though. Like a lot
Oh,
of
it is.
the tickets and lottery systems involved with that. I don't have the patience for it, you know. Personally, I'm more of a local music guy, you know, going to gigs, going to, well, even the mid-sized venues, right? Because like I'm into a bunch of like little indie bands or what have you that play in like some pretty cool theaters in the city, but it's um I don't know. There's a lot of like jukebox musicals recently, and I don't know how to feel about that because like you know, I'm a big music guy, right? I love like pop songs, I love rock songs, but seeing all these Broadway musicals come out now that are just like super pandery, like to
I
people's
do.
musicals. You know, like I hear all these ads on Spotify or whatnot about what is it? Hell's Kitchen or whatever, or like there's that Romeo and Juliet musical where they're trying to like take in all these like and it can work, right? Like Moulin Rouge, I remember that did it super freaking well. Like when Baz Luhrmann made the movie of it, obviously I haven't seen the stage musical, but like I don't know.
Think
It's sorry, go ahead.
they can be done well, but it takes a lot of effort and planning and rearrangement, and oftentimes even changing the lyrics just to make it fit like the
Yeah, yeah.
musical itself better.
Yeah, totally. Jukebox Cowboy. Did somebody say Jukebox? Yes, hello, Jukebox Cowboy. Welcome. Good to see you. Howdy. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like there's a long history of jukebox musicals. I'm surprised because, like, back in the '70s, I don't know if you've ever heard of Beatlemania. That was like a very early on, like, sort of jukebox musical recounting the career of the Beatles, essentially. And like two of the people who played, I think, John Lennon and Paul McCartney actually on the original Beatlemania sort of uh, run or cast recording or what have you, those people would go on to help record like stuff for Kiss and Gene Simmons in the '80s. It's just really weird how that springboarded a career. Like these Broadway stars so convincing in like the role of rock star and like playing the Beatles that they were able to springboard that into a music industry career. You know, I don't know exactly. It feels nowadays with Broadway musicals that that's becoming like the sort of pandering to nostalgia is becoming more of the norm than like, I don't know, celebration. How to say?
Makes sense. I feel like there are definitely new musicals and new works coming out that feel more original, that feel like they're really trying to do something new. But
Oh
at the
yeah.
same time, it feels like a lot of people are just wanting to remake what's old instead of do something newer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't
And
really speak. I honestly, I don't really pay attention to that many new musicals coming out, so I can't really speak to like general trends or anything like that. But it just seems to me, having like, living in the New York City area, constantly getting Spotify ads for, Broadway plays in the area, it feels like there's a lot of revivals, a lot of, safe jukebox options going on, and not a lot of risks being taken. Maybe it's more on the off Broadway, off Broadway circuit, but I'm not hearing it.
unfortunately, if you want to take a risk, a lot of Broadway producers won't take you on unless you have a proven track record
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
off Broadway or off Broadway space.
yeah,
And
no-
I mean, don't get me wrong, reviving musicals is a very, very long-standing tradition. It's
yeah, yeah.
possibly possibly just as old as musicals themselves are as making revivals of older productions. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I feel like all I've seen really coming out of the space is almost all revivals instead
Oh
of the
yeah.
original stuff that I love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that. What to say? I don't know. It would be a hell of an experience to go see like an old musical sort of rejuvenated for the modern stage. I get the sort of, I guess, impetus behind it, right? Because obviously there's a big old audience that wants to go see it. There's a thrill in getting it to redo it for like a modern stage. At the same time, I don't know. I'm no Broadway financier. I don't know anything about like if it's wise. I don't know about anything about like the wiseness of taking risks in Manhattan. Like, geez. I'll
It
tell you
can
what.
really
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. It can really be tough
Yeah.
because a lot of younger audiences just aren't in the place to see new musicals, don't have the finances to see new musicals.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
One of the more recent ones I can think of is when they did a Beetlejuice musical. Total failure at first until TikTok got a hold of it, and then
Yeah. No, I remember
younger
that.
musical theater fans started going to see it.
Yeah, I've heard of that story, I think. Do you know Wait in the Wings at all? That YouTube channel with like all the musical history videos?
I'm somewhat familiar.
They're really cool. I definitely recommend their videos. It's fascinating, like exploring the history of a really cool musical production, because there's a lot of rich cultural stuff that gets uncovered there. I really do love like diving deep into like the history of a rich cultural subject. Like I do these music history deep dives like every so often, or I say every so often, but it takes me fucking months to pump one out. But um, it's great getting to delve into like the meat and potatoes of how a work of art was made, and like the influences that go into it, because you never really know what you're gonna get. I don't know how to say. I'm sorry. I've completely lost my train of thought. Important thing to the matter is just like musicals that are. I'm sorry. I'm just completely brain farting. I don't know what's happened. Let's just seg into another topic then, I guess. Do you have any I guess what are your favorite like what's your favorite music apart from like Broadway theater and musicals?
I listen to just about everything.
Oh,
I
neat.
I take pride in the fact that I will give any song, any genre a try at least once.
Okay.
Right now, being in the VTuber space, it's sort of hard to not encounter a
Yeah.
lot of J-pop.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something that's been in my rotation. But also a lot of folk music as well.
Oh, neat. I will say I'm not really that. I'm not really that well educated on folk. Like, what folk in particular are you listening to? Is it like modern stuff or like going back to like 60s or even before that? Like, I feel like that's such a broad genre.
Definitely more modern on my end.
Yeah.
A lot of the artists I'm listening to right now are definitely country inspired or country adjacent, which I know
Hmm.
puts off a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's there's a lot of good country. I will admit, I'm not exactly that well versed in it, but just casually, watching videos of stuff like I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTuber Todd in the Shadows. He does like reviews of like country songs every now and then, and it's interesting to listen in and see what's happening in the sort of space of country. Like, I don't know, like there's a lot of obviously big commercial moves still being made from Nashville, but like even like with all the indie country stuff coming out nowadays, like I hear a lot of cool stuff coming from like Casey Musgraves, Orville Peck, like a lot of independent, a lot of unique voices that are being aired that, typically the bro country of Nashville wouldn't really, have space for.
I mean, I have always said I like country, I don't like bro country.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't love the kind of song where it's I lost my dog, my truck broke down, my wife left
Yeah,
me, and I'm
yeah,
really
yeah.
sad about it.
Right, yeah. It's
But there's a lot of yeah, especially from indie artists. There's a lot of stuff in the country space that's coming out that's very much not that, which is
mm-hmm,
cool to see.
mm-hmm. And I will say there's a lot to be said too for like country inspired rock music or more like folksy, I guess, bluesier sort of sounds like that. Like there's an album that came out recently. I don't know if you're familiar with the band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Somewhat, I wouldn't really call myself an active listener, but I've definitely heard some of their stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well they put out an album actually just this past Friday. That's very heavily inspired by like sort of blues rock and country rock sort of sounds. And it's really cool. Like they sort of infuse a bit of their jammy styling into it when it's like it's basically like I don't mean to sound pretentious, but like instead of like verse, chorus, it sounds like they're developing on a theme almost, and it's really neat. I really do love like sort of the creativity they get up to when they just sort of let their creative inhibitions fly like that.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said too, just like for the freedom and the looseness that country music allows for that. I love the sort of I wish I had the, like, it feels to me like a one-piece dilemma. I want to get into something like bluegrass or, like, other, like, older country music, but I feel like there's just, like, so many other, like, so much that I would need to catch up on to really properly understand it, you know?
That's fair. I would say that while country music isn't the kind of thing you need a complete history to really understand, it definitely helps.
Yeah, yeah. um... I'm gonna go, actually, I have more than enough water. So, like, what... I guess... What's the music that, like, inspires you most? Like, especially as, like, a sort of, like, VTuber singing musician yourself?
I mean, coming from a theater background, I'm still very attached to that sort of, like,
Oh,
very
yeah.
dramatic storytelling
Mm-hmm.
in music.
I hear that. Would you would you ever write a VTuber musical?
I mean, I'm not super confident in my ability to compose, but I think it'd be a cool thing to see.
That's fair. Yeah, no, totally. I don't know how that would work. But I mean, there's like so much in the VTuber medium that we have left to innovate on. Essentially, like I feel like somebody could easily come along and try to put something like that together, especially for like a con.
Oh yeah.
Like have a major event hall going. Jeez.
I think it would one day be super cool to get together a bunch of VTubers to put on a musical, or at least as close to as you can get to a
Yeah.
stage production in this medium.
Yeah. I mean, hey, they did like they did like readings like of stuff abroad like during COVID, right? I'm sure you could figure out some way to like connect a bunch of VTubers remotely at least.
Oh yeah.
But like it would be something even more next level if you were to do something like, a Hololive or Niji Sanji stage production, right?
Oh yeah.
Where / are you involved in community theater? I was never involved in community theater. I was always more of a high school theater kid. Also briefly did theater in college, but never community theater. How about you, Melody? What were you like a high school theater?
I was very involved in theater in middle school and high school, although as I got to high school, I started being much more involved in the technical side of things as opposed to the actual being on stage performing.
That makes sense. So you were like more of a stagehand?
Essentially, yeah.
That's cool. I always appreciate a stage crew. They were always, the chill people backstage to chat with.
And while it's not personally, well, I personally don't necessarily find it as fun as actually being on stage, it's still like it's a really vital part of theater.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's, there's definitely a wide industry of people, looking to hire stagehands. So
Oh yeah.
I had quite a few friends in college actually who were stagehands. I remember the college I went to was pretty theater dominated, so the theater major was pretty had quite a lot of resources put into it. What was it? My experience with theater, basically, I started off in high school, like You know the whole sort of dynamic where it's like, the high school theater department, has endless amounts of girls trying out for like lead roles and ensembles, but they have to like physically go out there and recruit boys to like fill ensemble parts, and like, they're able to very easily like narrow it down to like a few different guys for like the leads, and I was one of those guys who was like decent enough at singing and good enough at acting to consistently get the lead at my high school, like year after year, or if not the lead, but certainly like a lead character, like year after year. And then I hit college, and there was like all these different theater kids like going hard and trying out and like incorporating like Stanislavski, like incorporating methods in general. I'd never even like heard of like acting methods before like really going to college and shit. So like it was a whole different crowd, and I made a decision like basically after freshman year that nope, I'm going to commit myself to being a musician.
Yeah, college theater's a whole nother level.
Did you? I mean, I don't know if you've ever been. Did you say you went to college and did stagehand stuff there, or?
So I am actually currently a college student.
Oh.
I'm not doing stagehand stuff at the moment. I'm trying to focus on my degree.
That's fair. That's totally fair. Oh my god, musicals ate up a lot of time for me back then.
Oh yeah, they're very time and energy intensive, which does not necessarily work out with being a college student, which is
yeah
time intensive.
Whereas I felt like it was a lot more like being a musician, it's a lot more loose in how like I mean, that's easy for me to say. I was like basically a jazz musician in college, and a jazz drummer in college. No, nonetheless. And outside of like maybe a few different things written down on like a chart or whatever that I could easily improvise over, or like I was in like a few like concert band environments, I guess, where I like had to wait like a bunch of measures to play like one note or what have you on percussion, but I never had that like strictly regimented like experience in the arts. Thankfully, it was always a lot more loose, me getting to like know the other people in the music department. I have a lot of good memories with my college music department. Like it's really nice getting like, I don't know how involved you are, in your college department, like if you're taking vocal lessons there currently, but good college music department is a hell of a valuable resource. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I haven't been able to participate in music at my school as much as I'd like. I'm not a music related major, so that kind of excludes me from
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
That's fair. That's fair. You put on a musical album. Do you typically listen from beginning to end? Reckon that's pretty similar. Yeah, I mean, I mean, for most albums, I like listening to them. A lot of albums, I like listening to them all the way through. Though I find nowadays that I don't really have the time or patience to sit down and listen to an album all the way through. I don't know. I feel like I just sort of let YouTube carry me a lot of the time. Just sort of let the the algorithm ferry me from song to song. Like, I don't know. How do you listen to music, Melody? Do you have like your own YouTube playlists, Spotify playlists, stuff like that?
Uh, I mean, for musicals in particular, it really depends on the show. There are some where they're so cohesive that it feels wrong to listen to them out of order.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah, no, totally. For like musicals and rock operas, like, oh my God, Pink Floyd's The Wall or Tommy, like, it would, you cannot listen to albums like that on shuffle.
oh yeah. And they're so, especially in, I mean, you said that you're somewhat familiar with opera, and musicals take a similar approach in terms of leitmotifs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
Like, especially if you're listening to it for the first time, you have to listen to it in order so that you learn to recognize those leitmotifs and those character themes, and then you can recognize when they play in different situations later, which I think personally really enhances the experience.
absolutely, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I think that's. Now that I come to think of it, I think that's what Jukebox Cowboy meant when he asked that question. Yeah, that's totally similar to like a rock opera. Like, I don't know how super into rock operas you are, but what was it? Recently, not recently, but I once did a video on this one rock opera by Kiss called "Music from the Elder." It's a really fascinating, interesting little album. I wouldn't necessarily say it's good all the way through, but it's definitely a swing and a miss from like one of the most ridiculously theatrical bands in the business. And for that I did a lot of research into Pink Floyd's The Wall, what was it? The Who's Tommy. God, I would love to see, productions like that live. I've never gone to see like a rock opera live, like American Idiot or Tommy or anything like that. I feel like it would be there needs to be like more rock-centered musicals like that, I think.
Honestly, that's the way I would love for people to approach jukebox musicals.
Oh yeah?
Is the way that they approach Tommy and American Idiot. In that, like, keep approach it as an album.
Yeah.
Like the album can absolutely tell a story, but rather than incorporating whatever the random popular pop song is from like 16 different artists,
Yeah.
take one artist, take one album, take something that's a complete work, and enhance it through the lens of adding a, a musical style story to it.
See, that's fascinating to me because I don't know necessarily how many, I mean, outside of like concept albums or popular music, like how many popular albums would naturally lend themselves to something like that. But I definitely think, with the right writer, right director, something like that could work for sure. Let me see.
Concept albums in particular, I found lend themselves very well to musicals. Fairly recent.
Oh yeah.
I think within the last 5 years or so, Hadestown.
Oh yeah, no, I
Started
remember Hadestown.
Started out as a concept album and is just taken to another level through formatting it as a musical, through adding a Greek chorus, through adding a narrator.
Yeah. No, I remember. What was it? Years ago when that first sort of came out, I remember I was coming back from a trip with a friend. We'd been in this cabin with like a bunch of other friends, and we were going back home. And on our way back, he played like the entirety of the Hadestown soundtrack, and it's really neat how intricately woven all the musical themes, all the harmonic themes, all of that just sort of comes together and tells like this brilliantly emotional story. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of like Greek mythology in the world, but I definitely love like when people take it and like run with it in the modern landscape. Like how have you played Hades before?
Sorry?
Have you played Hades before?
As in the game?
Yeah, the game.
Yeah, I've played Hades.
Oh yeah. It's so just like fantastic. I love when you're able to like get like a bunch of diverse modern writers in a room and just really work with all the bizarre odds and ends and angles of Greek mythology and really make the most of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more.
I guess do you go to a lot of like theater performances or musical concerts or anything like that?
I try to. We have we have a local music scene, but it's fairly small in where I live now.
Oh, okay.
But I try and, being in a college town, I try and go to like the school's theater productions or like community theater, all that sort of thing. I try and attend whenever I can.
That's good. Yeah, I loved getting to do that when I was back in college and supporting my own friends doing that sort of stuff. Local music wise, what was it? When I went to college, we didn't really have much of a scene beyond the sort of bubble that we were in on campus. But nowadays, now that I live in New York City, I'm fortunate to play in like 2 different bands, including like a band of friends that I made in college that sort of live locally to the New York area. So I'm having a lot of fun there. The unfortunate part of things is that, we haven't been too active recently since, both bands, we're all, adults working, adult jobs now, and it's hard for us to really find time to get together and schedule things. That's what made going to college so fun for me, is that everything was so close together, and, even if friends were busy, we were still able to take like a few minutes out of our time to just like come across campus and hang or whatever, like it's value where you are right now and in like the connections you have and the opportunities you have, because oh my god, after college that's gonna be sorely missed. I guess what are your favorite memories in attending like a musical concert? if you have any that come to mind.
I have a funny one. I went to see a performance of Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't know if that's like a only popular within theater circles, or if that's somewhat popular outside of theater circles. But I just remember at the end of the second act, I turn around, I get up to go get a snack, and I turn around, and the girl behind me is just sobbing from the end of the act. Like, mascara running down her face and everything, and I'm just like, I didn't really think about, like, how it could hit someone that hard.
And adult Ben Platt must have really did a number on her, huh? Well, I mean, not Ben Platt, but
yeah.
The less said about, movie adaptations of musicals, the better. I mean, I don't know how you feel about most. I don't know how you feel about most of them, but I feel like every time, like, Hollywood producers try to adapt, like, stage musicals into a film, at least in recent times, it hasn't gone so hot.
I have mixed opinions. I think they can be done really well, but more often than not, they're done poorly. Mm-hmm. Like, one of my favorite movie musicals of all time is Mamma Mia, which is an adaptation of a stage musical.
Yeah. What is it? Are you familiar at all with Chicago, like, from 2002?
Yeah.
Brilliant fucking film. I loved, what was it? I remember, like, back when I was, doing high school theater and stuff, I had a friend who, sometimes, would have me over to his house, and he exposed me to a few different, like, really cool, like, musical movies. Like, it was Moulin Rouge. That was super fucking fun film. Like, fucking, what is it? Ewan McGregor and I forget. Was it? Her name is on the top of my head. It's the Australian girl that I forget. but yeah, no, Moulin Rouge, fantastic film. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
It really is, and I feel like that's the way to do movie musicals, right? If you ask me, is to don't try and make a musical into a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Approach it from the standpoint of making a movie. And
yeah.
The musical is just like a side effect, I guess.
Yeah. Like, I think there's kind of like a movie from the 80s that's kind of in that similar vein called Streets of Fire. Like, Patrick Willems did a video on that recently on YouTube, and it's really interesting. I've never seen the film personally, but it looks just like this high octane, cinematic action piece mixed in with like a Hollywood musical, and it's just like so richly made. You wish that like more directors now would they would understand to take full advantage of the medium rather than try to cram like a stage production unnaturally into a film. What are some of the strangest musicals you've ever seen? The Apple comes to mind. As far as strange musicals, I don't know. I'm not really. I don't really.
Depends on what you consider strange, really.
Yeah.
Theater gets weird.
I mean, what? There was like Urinetown, I guess, but I've never personally seen that, right? Like, so I can't really. I don't know.
Urinetown is oddly enough not as weird as it sounds.
Oh yeah. There was what was that? I did see one thing. I think it was a Sondheim musical. I forget. It was just like, God, this is gonna haunt me. What the fuck was this music?
Sondheim is.
He wrote a lot of musicals, but this particular one, I think it was like a flop back in the day. Anyone Can Whistle. I think that's what it was. That was a really strange musical. I remember they put on a production of that, I think, freshman year of my when I went to college, and that was really strange. I remember seeing that. In terms of like theatrical productions in general, though, like they my college put on like a production of Ulysses one year, and oh my god, that was freaky.
Theater gets very weird. There's an entire subgenre of theater that's based on the notion of being as absurd as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Like, just all of the modernist developments since like the end of World War II. I understand the value in that sort of expression, but you know, you could never see me acting in stuff like that personally.
It, huh?
I don't know. I
Depends
mean,
if you're talking about story. Probably the weirdest ones I can think of off the top of my head are Assassins and Rag the Cyclone.
oh yeah. I remember what was it? One of my like high school music teachers, he was like in a production of Assassins, and I remember he brought in like a DVD of it for us to watch or whatever when he was like grading papers, or like it was like an off day or whatever, and he didn't he didn't really want to teach us or anything, and so he just sort of played like this production. It was really interesting musical. I wonder I wonder if you could even write something like that today, Assassins, you know?
I really don't know if you could. I mean, you could definitely write it. I don't know if you
Especially
could
with
get it
like
performed
recent
today.
events.
Oh yeah.
It's yeah. Fans of Rocky Horror? I love Rocky Horror. I remember back in college going to like one of those Rocky Horror sort of amateur, I guess. What would you really call it? Like the call outs, sort of like. It's not really a play as much as it is a pantomime. Have you ever had a Rocky Horror experience?
I have never been able to go to a theater to watch one and to like really get the experience of, the call outs and throwing popcorn and
Right.
all of that sort of thing, but I have definitely seen Rocky Horror a couple times.
Mm-hmm. It's it's a really weird musical, and I really do appreciate it for just like the confluence of influences that it sort of brings together. Like, on the one hand, like there's all this B movie sci-fi influence, and the other you've got like all the recent glam stuff that's been going on. Like I've been working recently on a video on like glam metal in the 80s, all those bands with like the absurdly poofy hair and stuff, sort of like the influences on like the genre of visual K about but like Rocky Horror sort of played a lot into that sort of aesthetic. When originally it started on the West End in London, right? But then like a theater guy from Los Angeles, I forget his exact name right now, but he brought the Rocky Horror. He saw Rocky Horror in London. He was like, this would make a really good production in Los Angeles. So he brought it to Los Angeles at the Roxy, and from there, that was the production that got what was it? Tim Curry and Meatloaf. That really broke them into the mainstream, because from there, that was when the executives signed like a motion picture deal with Rocky Horror, and that's how the movie was born.
And the movie is probably one of the most iconic movie musicals of all time, too.
Really, yeah, it's a phenomenal film. I love Tim Curry's performance in that. It's so fun. The Grease movie is pretty awesome. Probably Travolta's finest moment. Grease is such an interesting case for a musical. In that, obviously it was written for a far different audience back then than today, but there is still a lot to like about it.
It really, Yeah, it really is pretty spectacular.
I remember I played in high school. We did like a version of Grease where it was like Grease Junior. Basically, take out all the super graphic stuff in it, and I played what was it? I played Roger. I was the guy that mooned people on stage. It was it was a lot of fun, but there was this one time I remember where what was it? During one of the mooning scenes, I think my microphone accidentally came out of, or at least the device attaching, the box attaching to my microphone came out of my pocket, and like mid pants, and like the sound guy was freaking.
No.
Yeah, the sound guy was freaking out. He was just like, "Ah, no, don't move! It's dangling!" And like people backstage, obviously, because this was the mooning scene, people backstage didn't know what the heck was going on. They think, obviously, the implication was a lot worse than the actual reality, but thankfully I wasn't too embarrassed by the whole situation. What a musical, Grease. What a musical.
Really, yeah. Although I don't quite know if I can argue Travolta's finest moment.
Yeah.
I'm personally a big fan of him in the Hairspray.
Oh my
movie
god.
musical as well.
Yeah, no, that is a really good movie musical, Hairspray.
Gotta be honest, whoever got the idea to put John Travolta in drag deserves to pay praise.
Absolutely. And have him married to Christopher Walken, no less. Like that's inspired casting. Highly recommend Brian De Palma's Phantom of Paradise. Oh yeah, that's the one with Paul Williams, or what's his face, right? Yeah, I think I've heard of that before. What's your favorite musical artist? I mean, me personally, I've on this channel, I've gotten known for my Kiss content, but my favorite artist personally is King Gizzard. Probably there's like Led Zeppelin, Radiohead, Soundgarden, bunch of other bands like sort of below that, like all sort of David Bowie, like all kind of gathered below King Gizzard. But it's, I don't know, my answer varies from day to day. I feel like I tend to be so absorbative of other music that I don't know. I can't really nail down one particular artist,
Same here. I mean, I said earlier that I like a little bit of drama in my music, and that definitely carries over to some of my favorite artists. Specifically, Queen is way up there. Probably David Bowie as well.
Oh, Bowie's great. Yeah, I love Bowie.
In terms of more recent, one of my favorite artists at the moment is Noah Kahan.
Oh yeah, I think I heard it's like one of his songs, I think, made like Todd in the Shadows like top 10 last year. It sounds interesting, like that. It's interesting, like straight up like dirt country stuff like that is able to chart as high as it is now. It kind of feels like the more I guess bro-y countryer vibes from the past few years are kind of receding almost.
It's nice, and one of the things that I really love about him is his lyricism. It's just, if there is not one of his songs that the lyrics just hit you, I'm pretty sure you don't have feelings.
Oh yeah. That's the mark of a good, acoustic guitar, like singer-songwriter, country type guy, the ability to really nail you where it hurts in the feels. That's such an underrated skill.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go get some water real quick, but I will be right back.
All right. Phantom of the Paradise. I'm not sure I'm too familiar with that one. It might just be that it's slightly older than what I usually listen to is. And I can say I'm not personally too familiar with glam rock, but it is definitely
Hey,
something that I feel like I'd be interested in.
I'm back.
Hey.
You said you're interested in glam rock, eh?
Well, I'm not too familiar with it, but it definitely seems like something I would be somewhat interested in.
It's definitely like one of the more theatrical genres of like definitely one of the flashier ones. I mean, like back in the 70s with like on the American side of things like Kiss and Alice Cooper, that was like straight up shock rock, but then you had a bit more of a tame, more glittery sort of scene in the UK with like Slade, David Bowie, Queen, T-Rex, like a lot of those bands were like really, how to say, I don't know. It was two different, distinct scenes almost. And then freaking yeah, the New York Dolls themselves, like early on, being like these trashy, almost drag queen sort of punks. Very I don't know. There's a lot to love about glam. A lot of rich history there. Like right now I'm sort of focused on researching like the early history of like glam rock as it sort of evolved from the 70s into the 80s, like and sort of took on more of like a metal sound to it. Like I don't know how familiar you are with like the genre of glam metal, but it's like the bands like Motley Crue, Kiss, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, like a lot of those guys, like, you know, obviously they're still circulating on the radio waves today, but like they they were rocking like such outrageous outfits back then that even now I feel like would draw a lot of would draw a lot of controversy from like some of the more some of the less I guess assured in their sexuality, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I haven't heard the music at all. It's just not something that I've really actively delved into.
Right. That makes sense. Phantom of the Paradise is a movie that came smack dab in the middle of the satanic 70s. Great cast, hilarious, dark, top tunes. It looks cool, yeah. Like, I think there's a trivia fact that I think I remember hearing about Phantom of the Paradise, and that I think it was Daft Punk were inspired by Paul Williams in that movie, you know, wearing a mask, to the point where they decided to wear their own masks. I miss Daft Punk. I miss when they were still super active. Let's see here. So Brime, he told me that that you did some karaoke with him, you know, some time ago. Do you often do karaoke collabs, or do you often, you know, sing to yourself?
A little bit of both. I love singing regardless of whether I'm doing it for an audience or just, you know, like in the car on my way to work.
Yeah, totally.
But I really love trying to do karaoke collabs when I can. It's really fun to not only sing myself, but to hear like what other people like to sing and how they interpret different kinds of songs.
And the latency's never too bad for you? Like, you you tend to, you know, line up pretty well with your partners?
I don't often do duets on karaoke streams just because of the latency issue. I know there's
Right.
ways to work around it, but I haven't personally tried any.
Yeah, no, I've had a few conversations with my guests so far about, you know, just that's one of the major issues with finding a, you know, doing a decent musical collab with other VTubers, right? Just like being able to, you know, making sure that they're within a reasonable enough distance of each other to make remote collaborations possible.
Well, I figure that's why we see so many collab covers from VTubers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that's probably why we see so many collab covers, is because it's so difficult to set up live.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense, have somebody record and do a bunch of the work, one place, and then have somebody drop their vocals in another. That totally makes sense to do. Do you have your own sort of like dream collabs that you'd want to, who you want to work with for a cover or anything like that?
In terms of something that is probably entirely a pipe dream,
All
I'd love
right.
to do something with Iron Mouse one day.
Oh, yeah, that's
She's an incredible singer, and I could probably go on for hours about her technique alone.
absolutely. I'm really impressed with her technique as well. Like just knowing the struggles that she's been through, with her own medical issues, like just to have that powerful a voice is incredible. Suisse as well, or
Suisse as well, for sure. But again, that seems like kind of a pipe dream at my current level.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. It feels, increasingly like the VTuber space is segmenting more and more into different, not cliques as much as like, I guess, affinities. How to say, like, it feels like we're no longer like you've got the idol VTubers in one place, then you got the more, I guess, music production oriented VTubers in another. Then you've got like agencies, you've got indies. It feels like we've got a lot more of a segmented community than ever before, and like I would love eventually to reach the level of like one of the major VTube, but it feels like, the work you need to put in to achieve that, or at least the luck you need to have, is like increasingly astronomical, right? So I just kind of prefer to do my own thing, and if the collabs eventually come, they will. I'm just I'm humble where I am now.
Yeah, I'm perfectly happy where I am now. I mean, again, that kind of collab would be an absolute dream, but
Yeah.
I'm also perfectly happy collabing with people who are also indie and who are more like music focused.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Uh, I will say I don't know. I haven't really done that many collabs myself, other than, recording covers with other people. I'd love sometime to do like a music live stream, but I don't know. I feel like I'm more the person that talk about music live than sing it or anything like that. I've been wanting to do a karaoke stream for some time now, but I feel like there's just a lot of challenge involved with getting the right I guess backing tracks or whatever, so you don't get copyright struck.
I mean, you're on YouTube, so it can be a little bit more. It can be quite a bit trickier.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
I normally do my karaoke streams on Twitch because they're not as strict with copyright.
That makes sense. I was wondering why I only saw one karaoke stream on your YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky in that I'm still small enough that YouTube doesn't care too much.
Oh yeah. See, I kind of feel like I could do. Then again, all the deep dives that I've done, I've never really shied away from using copyrighted music so broadly. So basically, like the only things that are monetized on my channel are like the smaller things I do, like these music talk streams, right, where I'm just using the royalty-free VTuber background music.
Yeah. I mean, I really love doing karaoke. Part of that's probably, again, coming from a theater background, is so much more what I'm used to. Like, I released my first cover fairly recently, actually. Earlier this week, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And it really surprised me how hard it was to make. because it's so different from what I'm used to doing. It's not the kind of thing you can just do it once and it's over. It's
Right.
recording so many times to get it right, and then finding the instrumental and the mixing and
Did you have to yeah, like how did you go about mixing that? Like did you sort of brute force it yourself or did you have like friends helping you?
I went to a friend of mine who basically did everything.
Oh, okay, that's that's good. That makes sense.
I tried to do it myself at first, and then I realized that if I was going to take the time to learn how to mix to the point where I felt comfortable releasing it, it was going to take way, way longer than I wanted it to be before I released a cover.
Yeah, yeah. Did you what was it? Was there an instrumental track on YouTube that you were able to find and sing over, or did you have to sort of put that together? Like, did your friend have to put that together rather?
So a big part of the reason I decided to cover Stellar Stellar, which is the song that I did,
Right.
is Hololive actively encourages covers of their talent songs, and so instrumentals are freely available as long as you give appropriate credit.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. That's
Which is really awesome.
Yeah, no. Especially for like indie people, rising up and coming up, like trying to make their own sort of income, not getting copyright struck or at least getting like demonetized. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where you are currently with monetization, if that's even like a thing you're worrying about at all, but
I mean, I'm not monetized on YouTube. I don't meet the requirements because I don't primarily stream on YouTube.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I don't really make long form videos.
Yeah. It's just weird though. Like I think YouTube are trying to make it where you have to be like you have to meet a certain threshold of views or something like every 5 months now to like sort of get monetization. And I'm just like, brother, that's too much. Just let me work on my own stuff at my own pace and do my own thing and don't try to squeeze more money out of me, you know?
I am technically monetized on Twitch, but again, it's not something I really worry about or press for.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's kind of the same with me. Like sometimes like I'll get like cents from like, ads running on my streams or my other like little videos here or there, but I've never bothered to collect any of it. I feel like it's just
here.
feel like it's just sort of sent like I'm far more of like a Patreon or a Ko-fi kind of guy than I ever have been like reliant on YouTube ad revenue. I don't know if you've ever used those sites. Like I don't know, like Patreon and Ko-fi, I feel like that's more for I guess creators who aren't as consistent with their content schedules, like because it gives you more of like a cushion to sort of operate under while you're busy working on the next project essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like sorry, go ahead.
I've never used them myself because I try and keep a consistent schedule, but I'm still very, how do I phrase this?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still very experienced, and I don't want people to feel pressured to donate or subscribe to a Patreon or anything like that when I can't necessarily guarantee that I'll be able to keep up the kind of content that they want to pay for.
Yeah, no, that's totally a valid concern. I know I've had to get a lot better in the past few months about like trying to give my patrons like a bang for their buck. Like I only charge like the people that I consistently pump content out to like $2 with like an optional like $6 tier if people want to vote on eventual polls or like ask questions in eventual Q&As that get priority or something like that. And even then I feel like I tend to get into a nasty habit of not exactly updating them like like in a super detailed manner, in a more detailed manner than I update my normal audience, right? Like I've been trying to get in the habit recently of like writing my own monthly blog for Patreon, and that's been fun, like just sort of trying to keep myself accountable for like what I've been doing month after month. But I don't know, I need to get a lot better with my motivation for sure. My motivation, my just everything with you know, becoming more of a content creator, how to say.
If I ever if I was ever moving to the kind of thing where I would be doing like regular timed releases and being able to do like sneak peeks and stuff on a Patreon, I may open one.
Yeah.
But until then, I think I'm probably just gonna stick with
Yeah.
streaming.
Yeah, that's valid. There's also the whole thing too with like trying to find like, you know, paid sponsors. I've never really had the desire to get like a sponsorship or whatever from the typical people who sponsor YouTube videos or whatever, like your Raycons or your NordVPNs or whatever.
This video is sponsored by.
Yeah, I don't even know, like, are VTubers even? I mean, I see VTubers sponsored by gacha games all the time, but like I've never really seen like you know, the typical, you don't have like Raycons or anything like that, like going after the VTuber market.
There's a VTuber I watch who's sponsored by like a Japanese snack box, but it's not like the
That's
kind of
interesting.
people who you would see sponsoring like video essays or that sort of thing.
Yeah. Like, I know there's also like gamer subs. That's a really big one in the VTubing space, in the creator space in general. Like the amount of creators I see hawking freaking like video game subs, absurd. Do you have any dreams, I guess, in the future of doing like a live VTuber concert performance?
A live concert performance is definitely one of those like very long-term goals that's up there.
Yeah,
like it's something I would love to do eventually, but at present I don't have the resources or the time to put something like that together.
Have you been to see one yet?
I've never been able to see one live because like I know that like Hollow Live and stuff do like concerts at cons.
Yeah.
I've never been able to see one of those just because they don't really come to my area. I'd have to fly across the country to see that sort of thing.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, no, I've been really debating.
On YouTube.
Yeah, I've been really debating recently, like, because on the one hand, Hollow Live are coming to my area, essentially. Like, I'm basically like a 15-minute walk away from this theater that they're playing at, like, in a few weeks. But on the other hand, there's also Anime New York City in my city, too. And I want to buy, like, a ticket for at least one of the days to that. So I'm currently in a position where I have to decide what weeb shit I have to spend my money on, man. It's brutal.
Yeah, I get that. I'd love to see one live, but again, they don't really come to my area. I'm not in like a huge population center like
That's
New
fair.
York or LA.
Yeah, that's fair. I hope that, I don't know, I hope we're able to do more VTuber shit across the country as it gets more popular. I feel like currently a lot of interest in it is sort of confined to the West Coast, at least. I mean, what was it? That one Offkai, that one VTuber con, like, it's only on the West Coast right now. I've been wanting for a while for them to, like, make an expansion over to the East Coast.
It'd be cool to see a VTuber con somewhere other than the West Coast.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to even be Offkai. Like, I would just take, like, someone else trying to spin off like either in the Midwest or around here on the East Coast.
I mean, I went to, well, not Comic Con because it's not like branded Comic Con, but I went to like the fan culture con
Oh yeah.
in my state, and I was surprised at how much VTuber merch I saw, especially in like the artist alley and that sort of thing.
Oh wow.
At the same time, it was still very heavily dominated by comics.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, like, I'm a comics fan too. I'm not holding that against them or anything, but
Yeah. No, totally. I haven't been to a good con in ages. Like, I think the last convention I could claim to have gone to is, what was it? I think I went to Too Many Games, like, back in PA. That was a lot of fun, Too Many Games. But no, I haven't been to like an anime convention or anything like that since like at least like 2015. So I've been missing out on a lot, and I just know there's like a lot of VTuber merch, a lot of like custom like VTuber prints and stuff being sold in those artist alleys that I'm missing out on. It hurts.
yeah, this one I went to this year was the first one in probably 5-6 years.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's also not since 2015, but it's been a while for me too.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It was really cool, although it was kind of interesting seeing the shift in like what was the most popular thing, especially like looking at cosplays. Like there's the staples of every convention. You got your Batman, you got your Deadpool, you got your Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But then I also saw a lot of My Hero cosplayers, a lot of Genshin Impact cosplayers, and a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen cosplayers as well, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, those seem to be like the new like sort of big three animes nowadays, right? Like I don't keep up with any of those shonens. I'm far more of a JoJo and Dragon Ball kind of guy, but
yeah, I'm not much of a shonen person. I did like Jujutsu Kaisen, but
oh yeah,
like I can't.
Like a lot of those
keep up,
shows
like,
are just
My
like
Hero or anything like that.
a lot of those shows are just so much of a commitment. Like I had a roommate once who binged all of fucking One Piece, or at least to the point where they were at like wherever they were a few months ago, and it took him months. And over the course of those months, I remember, coming out of my room or whatever, going to the kitchen and seeing him like in the living room, like seeing all these like random scenes from One Piece out of context. It just seems like such an absurd franchise, but I
mean,
I guess
shonens have a tendency to escalate. Like
yeah.
you see, like One Piece starts with, oh, I'm gonna find the one, or actually, Naruto's probably a better example. Naruto starts with, oh, I'm gonna be a good ninja. I'm gonna be the Hokage one day, and then by the time you get to the end of it, they're fighting God. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's very absurd, but I do love a good shonen. Like I said, Dragon Ball was my shit back in the day. Really do appreciate JoJo, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood too. Like, oh my god, such a good series.
I've got to be honest, I've never been much of a like typical shonen person.
Oh yeah.
My favorite stuff is all more in the range of, well, I will admit that I have sort of a guilty pleasure with idol anime.
That makes sense.
It's so colorful and cheerful. It makes you want to smile.
Hey, that's fine.
At the same time, my other favorite anime is stuff like Madoka Magica and Death Note. So.
Well, there you go. Kind of speaking of guilty pleasures, I wonder, like, what's your musical guilty pleasure, if you have any?
I would say K-pop somewhat, but like,
oh yeah,
like there are subgenres within J-pop, there are subgenres within K-pop, and like specifically like the like really cutesy sort of bubblegum stuff.
Oh, okay. I will say I'm, despite being a sort of music critic by trade as a VTuber here, I can't claim to have listened to that much K-pop myself. I mean, from what I have heard, it basically just sounds like what we do, except, made in Korea, which, I appreciate, but, all the same, I'm not gonna go out of my way to listen to another country's pop music like that, you know? I mean, I don't know.
Sometimes like pop coming from anywhere, there's subgenres within it.
Oh, yeah.
Like you have stuff that's very heavily inspired by old school rap. You have stuff that's very heavily inspired by like modern pop. You have stuff that's inspired by R&B, all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's just like again, going back to the whole One Piece dilemma of, so much time, so little, motivation to get properly, into it.
Very fair.
Although, of course, I'm sure there's like a fascinating history there with the K-pop industry, right? Like, Korea, it's only really become the nation it's become in the past few decades, and K-pop was a major part of that, and now it's BTS is one of the leading faces of South Korea on the world stage. How about that?
Yeah, I think there's super interesting history, but at the same time, like there's a lot of it out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not necessarily something that everyone has the time or the energy to really get into.
Yeah. I don't know. I see a lot of like the stan culture on Twitter surrounding it. I mean, I'm not a fan of stan culture in general, but it just feels like, all the armies and stuff forming around these K-pop groups. It feels just like a fight to the death, and like
Yeah, I tend to avoid fan culture in general because you get a lot of I don't want to say like crazies, but like you get a lot of people who are concerningly deep.
People who are invested into the lore. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Where I generally don't engage with stuff on that level.
Yeah. You listen to much Taylor Swift?
I don't dislike her music, it's just not necessarily my thing.
That's fair. I mean, I've heard obviously, a few Taylor Swift songs just sort of casually, and she's got some good stuff here or there, but I feel like I would need to really take a major deep dive to really give, a solid opinion whether or not I hate or like her or anything like that. It just sort of feels to me like she's kind of like, water coming from the water fountain, or like a pack of chewing gum at the.
Here.
Like she's everywhere essentially, and I feel like I'm going to need like a few years, after the dust has settled. I'm gonna need to plunge into her discography for myself to really see what's good, what's bad, just sort of objectively, right? Because I feel like we're at a point right now where a bunch of opinions over Taylor Swift are just polarized.
Yeah, and I mean that's the state for fan culture for a lot of popular musicians at the moment. Like you brought up BTS.
Yeah,
and, I'm a BTS fan. I have been attacked for saying I don't like a song before.
Oh yeah. Oh, I believe it.
Like saying, "Oh, you can't be a real fan of this musician if you don't like every single thing they've ever touched."
Yeah, that's absurd, especially, in a culture now where people should be encouraged to be more open and, transparent and, honest in their I guess in their intentions with others, just sort of creating a culture of, I guess, intimidation almost seems almost antithetical to that.
Yeah, I would love to see more people explore more genres of music because there is so much great music out there.
Absolutely.
And I feel like a lot of people are closed off to that whether it be by virtue of just like I only listen to rap or I only listen to country.
Yeah,
by
yeah.
virtue of being intimidated by the fan culture.
Yeah, I've been meaning to listen to a lot more rap music for years at this point. And I've been trying, recent stuff. There has been, a lot of good stuff coming out in like the past decade or so that I've been trying to get into. I don't know how familiar you are with JPEG Mafia, but he recently put out an album like I don't know if it was a few months or a few weeks ago by this point, but like it's super, super fucking dense, super, super crazy, and just an all-around incredible time, like just auditorily wise. And I highly recommend it. I think it's called "I Lay Down My Life" or something like that. But super, super fascinating music that comes out of like the whole hip hop scene that just like 15 years ago I wouldn't have been interested in, because I was very much one of those kids that was like, I'm born in the wrong generation, very, very sort of stubborn and in my ways. But thank God for music college, or thank God for my music department, rather, for sort of turning me on to just looking at music objectively,
Say that making more friends, well, within the VTuber sphere, but also just making more friends outside of like the theater crowd has really expanded my music tastes.
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta keep your ear open. A bunch of people. Everybody brings their own sort of flavor to performance, to writing music. And I've really valued, the times that I've gotten to have with, the bands that I'm in, getting to meld our various influences together to create something whole. Like, I don't know, would you have an interest in doing like a sort of musical group like that, or are you primarily concerned with just like your own sort of singing and or collaboration as your own solo vocalist?
Very, very open to doing a musical group like that, but at the same time, I don't know how much I can contribute outside of singing.
Yeah, that's definitely a hard sell, being able to just pick up an instrument and learn it like that. Like I've been trying like 3 different times now to learn the guitar. Haven't really been successful, just because of the I don't know. I guess you're kind of starting to see a pattern here. My name is Rizzy Orangi. I am a lazy orange cat boy. I find it hard to, I find it easy to start things, but to commit to them and see them through, it takes like a certain level of passion from the topic for me to really get motivated like that,
Well, I used to play the cello. I don't really know if it's accurate to say I still play it, given that I haven't played it outside of picking it up like once a month for a couple years now.
That's fair.
But,
I
I have friends who I met through that who have continued it all the way into college and beyond, that I'm just so amazed at.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for those people who really do stick with it. I relate to that. I like I said, I was conscripted into my school's orchestra very early on when I was in elementary school, and I played I was a second violin, I think, and I never practiced it. I always kept the tape on. I never learned proper finger positioning, and just sort of brute forced my way through it for 5 years until I decided to commit to choir instead. Very interesting experience in my life, though. I would, if I'd taken it seriously, I wonder if I'd be like doing classical music instead of like, rock stuff or jazz stuff or what have you.
I mean, like, the instrument itself is not necessarily limited to classical music. I have a friend who's a violist.
That's true.
Who does hyperpop with viola.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of potential with like genres like that, like hyperpop, and a lot of the stuff that's going on nowadays. We're living in a time that like there's a lot of mixture and intermingling between genres and different styles of music that like you put one weird thing into a song, it wouldn't necessarily sound that weird if you if you lead into it properly and you have the right, I guess, sort of gumption going into it.
Or, if you commit to it, I think that you can pull it off.
Absolutely. That's I guess like people, something that I notice a lot with like Gen Z musicians or like even like late millennials type people, like I'm one of them, like since we've grown up with like streaming and all these different sources with all these different musics that before were sort of segregated in their own different sections and record stores or CD sections, like I feel like we're a lot more open to different possibilities in various genres. Like I've always maintained that rock music, or at least not always, but like more recently, especially after college, I've sort of maintained that rock music, it doesn't need to be saved. As you constantly see in the press, saviors of rock music needs saving and all that stuff. Doesn't need to be saved, I think, as much as it needs to evolve and sort of take on other influences in order to continue to remain relevant to generations, not just our own, but like years on from now. Like the way an art form dies, the way a genre dies, is if you just continue to do the same shit, in my opinion, all the time.
I mean, almost every genre that exists evolved out of something else.
Absolutely.
Like, rock music evolved out of blues, and blues music evolved out of folk music, and just like everything is an evolution of something else. If you refuse to evolve, you're just gonna eventually disappear.
There was this one was it somebody did a video recently where it was like an iceberg of genres of the 2010s or something like that. What's it? Bandsplaining. He did like this hour-long video about like the genres of the 2010s and sort of an iceberg format. And it was interesting getting to see like the sort of offshoots that have emerged from like rap and electronic music in the past decade that I wasn't even paying attention to because I've been so focused on my own sort of indie psychedelic rock mentality.
I mean, I will be the first to admit that I'm not always as adventurous as I'd like to be, but I try and listen to something new whenever I can.
That's valid. I do. There's something to be said for just taking a leap. I mean, I tend to get into a rut where I get very comfortable with my own Spotify playlists, like whenever I'm at the gym or like listening casually, or like where I'll go through my recent YouTube likes and just listen to that. But on the occasion when I get tempted to click on like a recommended video in my YouTube feed, or like just go into a recommended thing in Spotify, oftentimes the algorithm will not really do me wrong.
I mean, I honestly can't tell you how many times I found cool new artists by either clicking on... I get a lot of covers in my YouTube feed because when I'm learning a song, either to just sing it on karaoke or to cover it, I listen to a lot of covers to hear how different people have taken on the song. It helps me sort of figure out what I want my take to be. And so as part of that, I get a lot of covers in my YouTube feed, but I honestly can't tell you how many cool new artists I've discovered by just clicking on a random video. Like, oh, this looks cool.
Yeah. It's really cool getting to, I mean, especially when you're on that side of YouTube, getting to go through people's covers and see how they've interpreted various, music things. Like, it's interesting when you get to a certain point with stuff like that. When you like enough videos, you sort of get into this side of YouTube where it's a lot more like a lot less views. Like I've been getting like recommendations in my algorithm of like recently uploaded music that's like 47 views or like 57 views or stuff like that. And I don't really bother to click through it, but like the the idea that YouTube is able to plug into my tastes and try to serve me like less known music, that's sort of along those lines. That's really neat to me. I wish more platforms are able to help with discoverability like that in the future. Uh, let's see. So that's basically all the questions that I had written down for you, for this thing. But I don't know. Are there anything? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about in the time we have? Like, I don't know. What's your sort of schedule going on?
You pretty much covered everything that I had wanted to address.
Alrighty. Well, I mean, we kind of got a late start anyway, so I should go and get some dinner, I think. It's pretty late
same
tonight.
Here.
But it was great talking with you. You got a pretty cool taste in musicals, and I definitely I don't know that much about J-pop and stuff like that, but it's cool to see someone as passionate as you with that.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too. It's nice to hear from someone who's involved in a completely different like musical sort of space than I am.
Absolutely, though. Yeah, I love meeting new VTubers, connecting, through music, and hopefully, hopefully it'll lead to something else in the future. I love meeting new people through this, through other music related stuff, and hopefully, oof, I don't know, but yes. Thank you so much, chat, for tuning in. Not exactly sure how many of y'all remaining, but let me see. I want to try and raid into somebody here. See if there's anybody. Nobody really up that, I don't know. Oh, I completely forgot to ask. How rude of me. Melodi, where can people find you? I guess, where are you most active? Yeah. And is there anything else you want to promote, I guess, before we leave?
I try and stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch and YouTube. I'm going to have to cut down on how much I'm streaming when my classes start up again. But until then, I usually stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Twitch and YouTube. I'm not too active on YouTube. It acts as more of like an archive than it does as like
Makes sense.
A video sharing thing.
Yeah.
I can't think of. Oh, I'm gonna try and stream tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'm gonna stream yet. I have to figure it out. But
nice.
I'm gonna try and stream tomorrow. And I mentioned my first cover is out. I covered Stellar by Hoshimachi Suise. I always stumble when I try and say her name.
It's okay. I stumble over a bunch.
Check that out. I'd really love that. It's on my YouTube, and that's about it.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you so much once again, Melodi, for doing this. And thank you to everybody in chat who's tuned in today. Not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing next as far as my channel. I'm going to try to do another Music Talk stream next week, but I've got a busy weekend ahead of me between the King Gizzard concerts that I'm going to and, a few other things that I'm committed to. So we'll see. More about that to come. Anyways, thank y'all so much for tuning in tonight, and I will see y'all next time. Bye-bye!